Ones Go Productions.
This stuff's creepy.
I wake up and I see 3 figures standing at the end of the bed.
They actually saw some 7 to 8 foot tall, hair-covered ape-men looking creatures that were looking at them through the trees.
Reality stranger than fiction.
I see this bipedal creature peeking out behind a tree.
Welcome to where the weird ones are! You're so weird.
Hey, this is Rochelle Stratton, and you are listening to Kevin with Where the Weird Ones Are. So sit back, relax, and enjoy.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Where the Weird Ones Are. My name is Kevin, but you probably already knew that, and if you didn't, now you do. You might notice something a little bit different. My studio does not look the same. That is because I have moved, the last episode, 252, I did tell you a little bit about it. About selling the house, moving, but I digress. That's enough about me anyways. So today I have a special guest. His name is Evan Thomas. He's out of the great state of Vermont, and he is a part of, or if not the founder of, Green Mountain Ghost Society, which I've had the opportunity to check out some of his YouTube videos, and I enjoyed them, so I highly recommend you guys checking that out as well. But other than that, Evan, if you don't mind letting the good people know who you are, where they can find you, all that stuff. But before you do that, thanks for being here, man. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. So, as you said, I consider myself the co-founder. The way we started our group was me and my friend Dean. Well, one night we were just messaging back and forth, and I was watching one of those shows with the paranormal investigators at the time, and we just started talking back and forth. And I think it started as a joke, but I was like, I've always wanted to kind of do it, so we made it happen.
Nice, man.
Thank you. We do prefer to try to find locations that have like history behind it. That way we can kind of tell like a tale or something, keep the history alive. Plus it's fun to deep dive and look for like verified truth or facts when it's looking at certain locations.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that I enjoyed about some of your videos is that you spent a good portion in the beginning going over a little bit of the history. I can't remember. It's been a while since the last one that I watched. I think you were at a bar. That could be incorrect. That's probably incorrect. But anyways,
Would it be the Hoppin' Moose maybe?
I think was
next to it. The Hoppin' Moose, which was next to a vacant lot that they had in Rutland, Vermont, that they had called the Pit.
Uh-huh.
And where the story about that was next to the park, where the pit is. It used to be a building, and it burnt down in the late 70s, I believe. And 5 people died in that fire. So I was thinking about, for example, what was the celebrity that from the Manson murders, Sharon Tate. I was thinking about there's a guy that has a house that's supposedly extremely haunted ever since the old Sharon Tate house got torn down. So I was thinking about how, if there's anything left behind, because that's probably one of the most tragic and horrible ways you could go, that it might that might have something that would migrate.
Yeah.
They're currently building a new hotel there.
Ooh.
I know. It's like, don't tempt fate.
Yeah, hotels always find that residual, whether it's near or around, and it always gets attracted just because of the people passing through all the time. you know, so that's pretty interesting. But yeah, man, where can people find you if they want to get up with you or check out your investigations?
Well, we do have a Facebook page, and we also do a YouTube channel. I keep tinkering with the idea of maybe potentially adding some other stuff down the road,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, I mean, we're all working people and with families, so it's hard to find time sometimes. So our videos, investigations, we do them sporadically. Unfortunately, I like to, as I mentioned before, I like to try to put together some information. That way people know the whole story of where we're going. And I prefer to find stuff that has like a verified past. Like a lot of people have mentioned, have you ever heard of Goldbrook Bridge in Vermont?
Yes. Yep.
Also known as Emily's Bridge. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of people keep suggesting that we go there. And I mean, we might someday just because a lot of people keep asking for it. But the whole story of Emily, there's no actual like written proof that anyone died in that location. Like I've scoured newspaper articles and everything,
Mm-hmm.
which is another reason why I like doing the places that have like history, because sometimes you find something interesting, like the West Castleton ghost town. Did you ever see the video where we went there?
No, I didn't.
Okay, so on Lake Bomazine, there was up until about 1920 a town of West Castleton, and it was really relied on the slate industry until it dried up and the town folded. But there was a story that you can see a boat on Lake Bomazine sometimes at night with nobody in it, just gliding the top of the water. And they say that it was because 3 slate workers borrowed a boat to go across the lake to go drinking. But the next day, they never made it across the river, and they found the boat empty and never found the 3 guys. So I wondered, it was allegedly from the later 1800s. So I looked all over in the news trying to find something about 3 guys going missing in a boat. And I never did find anything on that. But I did find on the other side of the lake, there was a boat that once blew up, had an explosion. There was something wrong with the fuel tank. But like right off of the shore of Crystal Beach, which is roughly probably where they would have been rowing to. And in that explosion, 3 people did end up dying. So and it's one of those things, like this happened in the earlier part of the 1900s, and nobody seems to know that story. But I found it by chance while deep diving for something else. So I do like the research aspect of doing these investigations.
Yeah, it's fun to, in my opinion, it's fun to find things that you didn't know. Well, or that it's not popular. They're not popular stories, and then you find new stories, and sometimes the stories that aren't like local legends or whatever turn out to be even more interesting than the ones that people talk about certain locations or areas. um I don't know, I find history fascinating, and I just I wish more people were into it. I mean, there is a lot of people into history regardless, but like I just wish more people wanted to know about history, because the more that you know, the better you can um, learn and progress and make things better than they were before. And I don't like like Penhurst might be selling to something, and to an AI data center or whatever. And I don't know. I just, when it comes to the history of locations, I mean, I get it too. I'm not the owner. I don't pay for the upkeep and stuff like that for all these places. So, I mean, I get it. You want to make money off of it at the end of the day, but I wish there was some way to preserve um, some places without having to break your bank, I guess, in a way, in a short way of saying, a long-winded way of saying that. But um, So, Evan, I did want to ask you, what did you have any experiences before you decided that you were going to start looking into this stuff?
Nothing where I could say it was definitely an experience. Honestly, it was just kind of always an interest. I mean, I'm an '80s child, so
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in the day where families gathered in the living room after dinner and watched TV, and unsolved mysteries was a big one in my house. And I always loved the episodes that had ghost stories attached to it. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, and yeah, or what was it? There was MTV had a show for like 1 or 2 seasons called Fear. Do you remember that
Yep,
one?
I
It's
do.
like a game show where they did paranormal investigations, and
They had
so.
the body, the chest plates or whatever, and the camera was like right in their face and
Oh
stuff.
yeah,
It was so much fun because you get to see their reaction.
I
It
couldn't
was like
believe that
so
show
close.
didn't go longer. To be honest, I
Me,
thought it was awesome.
same. I
But
loved it.
no, I've always
Um,
liked the spooky stuff and everything. Like even as a kid, I wanted to watch scary movies. If it kept me up at night, it was better than yeah.
what what do you think it is about spooky, scary, mystery, and stuff like that that attracts people to those kinds of stories? Is it not knowing, or like, because I think horror is like, you get that fear of possibly dying without the fear of actually dying, with knowing that you're not going to die. You know what I mean? Like, you still get scared and spooked out, but
I don't
I
know.
mean, other than
Sometimes
that, what do you,
I'd say sometimes people just want to feel something, and that's something where if you feel it, you're feeling it. Of course, the other thing is the adrenaline rush.
mm-hmm,
Some
mm-hmm.
people find that, but and I definitely think the not knowing. I mean, humans are extremely curious. That's definitely not one that you can debate. I mean, we're literally trying to go back to go back to the moon. So I'd say curiosity is a big part of it too. But
Yeah, yeah, I guess you're probably right. Um, so where did you go for your first investigation?
so our first investigation, we went to the Hubbardton battlefield because
Nice.
it was a convenient location for those of us that started off with this, and I will say it's interesting to see like how we've grown since then. And I will say like that first investigation, the only thing that I would say that was somewhat compelling as to whether or not that place may or may not be haunted was up at Monument Hill, which is where it's like this hill where they were fleeing from Fort Ticonderoga because they didn't have enough people to hold it when the British came to take it back. So they waited for it to be dark, and they amscrayed and started heading south to help out with the Saratoga campaign. Well, the British, when they realized that had happened, they decided to chase after them. So they kept this rear guard behind, and they ended up to pick up stragglers, and they ended up engaging with the British in Hubbardton, tiny little town in the middle of nowhere. But like several hundred people died in a battle there. It was the only battle fought on Vermont soil. But the Monument Hill, so there's like a kind of like a hard point of a hill, and the Americans or Continental Army would have been on one side, like taking cover, and the British were charging up this hill, and they were firing down on them. So I'm assuming that's probably where a lot of the casualties happened. Was probably right there at the start of the battle. But we out of nowhere we started smelling like gun smoke or like black powder, And one of the guys that was with us, Jared, I mean, he's a huge gun enthusiast. So it's like if he says it smells like black powder, I'm going to take his word on it. So, but there's no houses really close to the battlefield, so we couldn't like figure out where the smell was coming from. I think it was kind of hard to debunk.
I love those ones. when it's hard to debunk. Um, other than that, did you guys have any other experiences out in there?
No, I mean, like a couple of like the guys might have had like personal feelings where they like the air feels different, and I mean, I think it's important to take that into account, but I think it's kind of hard to pass that off as evidence or proof because at the same time, I mean, you're running around in the middle of the night, everything's quiet, you're looking for ghosts. So, there's going to be anxieties and emotions. So it's hard to decipher if this feeling that you say you have is actually something paranormal. So it's like, it's worth noting, it's worth documenting, but I can't say it like passes as hard evidence. Like I feel like a lot of the stuff that we do share in our videos, I would say is very debatable, and it's I'm always upfront with that in the videos. I'm not saying like this so and so is paranormal, but I wanted to share it so that everybody can see and decide for themselves, kind of thing.
I gotcha. That makes sense, man. I always, every time I'm somewhere and I got this weird feeling, and then I'm like trying to explain it to somebody, and I'm like, you know what, you're not gonna believe me anyway because I mean, not technically, but it is my experience, so I can't really expect you to believe it or to put any stock into it. So, what has been your favorite place to investigate so far?
I would probably say it's a close one between the Crown Point historic site in New York, or what's known as the Pittsford Haunted House in Pittsford, Vermont. But those two were both pretty interesting.
Yeah. How interesting are we talking?
Well, Pittsford Haunted House was our most popular one, for one. But the thing with the Pittsford Haunted House is, how should I put this? So Pittsford it's like a really small, quaint town. And what a lot of people don't realize is that this haunted house, it's literally used on the weekends for before Halloween, like the 2 weekends before Halloween. It's used as a haunted house attraction, but it's a fundraiser to raise money for the local fire department. But the building itself has one of the things that I look for the most: history, because it was opened up in the 1920s as a children's tuberculosis hospital, known as the Calvary Preventatorium. And a lot of people don't realize this, but a more documented case would be the Vermont Police Academy is also in Pittsford. That was a huge, opened up as a huge sanatorium, and that one's allegedly haunted because they say like there's call buttons, and if you hit them, that like the ghost of a nurse that ended up contracting TB while working there will visit you. But people don't realize, because you have to literally drive like all the way through town to get to the haunted house and way past that, but it kind of curves back. These two buildings are actually fairly close to each other. Like there's a short distance through the woods, I guess. And allegedly the reason why that location was picked for the sanatorium was because it was considered one of the sunniest spots in the state, I guess, because back then they said one of the best treatments they thought was fresh air and sunlight for TB.
Damn.
But we got a lot of, how should I put it? There was a couple of really interesting, like I like to play with or we like to use the spirit box that sweeps through the radio stations. But that's another one of those things where it's like, it's fun to do it. It's interesting, but there's always going to be speculation because you are sweeping through radio stations. So you could argue that you might be going through and getting something else. but we did get a few interesting hits on that I found while reviewing the footage, and that was on a stage where they so like the setup that they have there's a big main building, but on the left and right of the building there's these two smaller buildings. And what I found out from doing research is that these two buildings were considered, they were like the main dormitories. They would have been called like sleeping cottages or something like that. And it's like one main like center like common area with two rooms on the side. And if you go in there, you can actually see these like windows that are made to like slant and open up to let fresh air and sunlight in. And they would have put like 8 people in each of those rooms. So there would have been 16 in each building and like 32 total in those two dormitories.
Uh,
But I guess the guy that got us in there to do the investigation was telling me that he had actually seen a picture that somebody took on that stage once where there was a person coming off of the stage that was not there, and it only showed up in the picture. So because the stage, they have like a band that like lip syncs dressed as skeletons while you're waiting in line to get into the haunted house. So that's why I keep saying
That's
stage
neat.
and didn't say why there's a stage. No, they do a really good job there. That's if people want to check out an actual haunted place that they can go through as a haunted attraction, I would recommend. Like I said,
Nice.
it raises money for a local fire department. But the
Well,
other reason that I really liked that one was we also had a few questionable EVP hits, but on the main building, the second floor up is closed off. Like the haunted house doesn't go through there. But when they designed it, as I read, the second floor of that building would have been used for when kids first came there. They would have been held on that second floor of that building and monitored until they figured out whether or not they were sick. And if they were not sick, then they would move them to the dormitories. But I remember when I was reviewing the footage after the investigation, so we're down in these last 2 rooms on a hallway. It's like I'm in one room, my friend Dean is in another, right across the hallway from me, and Cody, my friend, the guy that actually got us in there, he was kind of standing at the end of the hallway with a night vision camera going back and forth between the 2 rooms. As I'm reviewing this footage, I had to stop it, and I'm looking at it because all the way, as he's like going from one room back to the other, all the way down the hallway, I see this like black, misty like blob. So I start watching it over and over and over. And eventually I decide, you know what? I think the IR light, that's just how far it went. So I continue to watch it. And then I start seeing shapes showing up at the end of this hallway. And I'm like, well, what the hell is that? So I keep watching it a little longer. And then all of a sudden, there's a clear as day reflection of the light of the IR camera coming in on a window that I would say was probably a good 30, 40 feet past where that black misty like shape was. So that was pretty interesting. That was like like we actually like looked like we had caught something that was pretty hard to explain.
That's cool.
And then Fort Crown Point, where should I say it was Fort St. Frederick, and then His Majesty at Fort Crown Point. But that's over in New York on the other side of Lake Champlain. But when we went there, we ended up turning, like, did one night, but man, I was able to make it into 2 videos, and it was neat because I could kind of separate the videos though, because the point was originally controlled by the French with Fort St. Frederick. Now, after I think it was after the British retook Fort William Henry, at some point, the British, they're coming, and they knew they couldn't keep the fort, so they retreated to Carillon, which is now known as Fort Ticonderoga.
Mm-hmm.
But they blew up their own fort. They blew up their own fort and made their way there. Made sure they didn't leave anything behind they could use. And, some of the left behind rubble was used in the construction of the new fort, which was even bigger. It was like the largest earthen forts built. It was never directly attacked, but there was an incident where there was a chimney fire, actually, and the chimney fire caused the fort to catch on fire and turned what was supposed to be like this unattackable fort that controlled the waterway of Lake Champlain into a pretty much useless pile of rubble, which ended up becoming a significant thing because I'm sure you've heard the story of Ethan Allen taking Fort Ticonderoga without firing a shot.
Yes.
But the lesser known story is that he sent Seth Warner and a group of guys to what was Fort Crown Point, because there was a skeleton crew of like 6 or 7 British soldiers, I think, that were manning it at the time. So they easily were able to take that, and there was still the fire cannons. They still had cannons there. They were just buried under the rubble. So they actually took, at the same time that they took Ticonderoga, they took Fort Crown Point, and they dug out over 100 cannons. A lot of them were actually used in the Siege of Boston.
Oh, wow.
During the American Revolution. And then it was also fairly, how should I put it, significant because the Siege of Quebec, when Ethan Allen and his people tried to take Montreal or Quebec, they actually had, I believe it was a smallpox outbreak. And that's for that reason they had to retreat, but they retreated back to that area of Fort Crown Point and made a makeshift hospital there. They had people dying from smallpox by like the handful.
Oh,
so there was
geez.
actually a lot of deaths there from that.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yes, but
Smallpox ain't no joke.
No, there's some pretty good documentation actually about you have to dive for it, but like I think at one point there was a guy that said that they were pulling out usually like 5 or 6 people a day that died from this. But it was interesting because like I said, so like I kind of as a way to make it easier to follow the history side of things, I did one video that was more focused on Fort St. Frederick, and one that was more focused on Crown Point. That way people could, distinguish the two and it wouldn't run together.
Makes sense.
The French fort, they had at one point we were playing like some like we looked up some old French song or something and started playing French music, and like we were getting a lot of interesting hits on our K2 meters with that. And there's also right across the street there's a campground, and the campground has a lighthouse, but the lighthouse was also the site where the French had a windmill. So we went over there and did like a EVP session. I got this weird like toot sound. Like it almost sounded like a steam whistle that you would hear on like a paddle boat.
Oh, no shit.
So, but as interesting as that was, the larger fort that the British had, Fort Crown Point, we were in what would have been the officers' barracks in one of the rooms in there. And there were 4 of us there at this time, and we split up. So like two of us were in one room, and then the other 2 were in a different room. But we had a REM pod going, or I should say the other 2 had a REM pod going. I wasn't even in the room at the time, but they were asking some questions. The REM pod went off twice, and like I said, with personal experiences, it's good to note them. Don't like how should I put it, discount somebody's personal experience, but when it comes to like, how should I put it, like hard proof, it's hard to. But one guy, Lee, he said that like when they asked how many people are here, and they said something like hundreds, he said the hair on his back of his neck stood up, and that's when the REM pod went off. What they did not see at the time, though, and I found it after reviewing the footage, was that both times that the REM pod went off, it physically moved. Like it would move, like the antenna moved one way, but then as it beeped, it moved back in the other way, which kind of how should I put it? It's the fact that it moved in two different directions twice kind of makes it hard to say that it's like the wind or something like that.
Yeah.
I will also say, as much as I find spirit boxes to be questionable, I remember when I was reviewing all that footage for Crown Point, I kept finding these weird responses that sounded like they had like a British accent to it.
Well, no shit.
That was hard to explain, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. That's interesting. The fact that because the antenna, like with the REM pod, all they got to do is be close to it, and that makes me think that
Correct.
somebody was trying really hard to get your attention through that, so they like ended up bending it. Because I think of ghosts, and just like the movie Ghost, where they don't necessarily know how much, like they might be trying to like tap you, and then they end up punching you. You know what I mean? Like they're not trying to be violent or whatever. But damn, to witness the RAM pod the antenna actually moving one way and the other is a wild experience for me for me personally. To
Like
be
I
able
said,
to see something moving, you know.
We didn't even see it in real time. I found, like I said, I wasn't in the room when that one happened. I was one or two rooms over, but I was the one that found it while reviewing the footage.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, when I saw that move and I rewound it and was like, I must have looked like a kid on Christmas.
I
like,
bet you did. That's amazing. That's amazing. Is that on your YouTube? Is that video's on your YouTube?
It is.
Okay. I'll have to check that one out.
That's the only one we have where we have something actually moving on its own. So
that's super interesting. Do you have any like bucket list locations?
So in Castleton, Vermont, there is a place called the Old Chapel, which is part of the they now call it the Vermont State University at Castleton campus or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the day, it was Castleton State College. Then it was Castleton University. Anyways, they own this building called the Old Chapel, which I guess it was a church at one point. But if you dig far enough back on that one, the chapel was also at one point a medical school in the 1800s. And the medical school was not part of the Castleton College. It was like its own private entity. Mm-hmm. But back in the day, people didn't tend to donate their bodies to science too much. So in the late 1800s, there was apparently one of the professors had the students going out and doing grave robberies on freshly deceased persons.
Oh,
and they were, you know, like they were doing it for the purpose of science, but
yeah,
at the same time, that's not something you do. But I mean, I get it. They were kids and they wanted to learn to save lives, but eventually people started to kind of question that something was going on. So one lady named Penfield Churchill, when she was buried, they went back the next day and saw that the grave was disturbed. So when they dug the grave back up after her funeral and saw that it wasn't there, apparently the whole town formed an angry mob that literally showed up at this chapel. And like the sheriff had to come in and get involved. And eventually they got in there and investigated. And when they searched the chapel, they found the body, but the head had been removed because they were I guess they did that to try to make it where they couldn't identify the body. but they were able to identify the body. And one part that most people don't know about this story that I found while deep diving was they did recover the head. So the head and the body were reunited together. But a lot of people claim that they see the a headless ghost in there.
Oh
Now,
shit,
to be
that's
fair,
interesting.
they were doing work on it once. They did actually find like bones and stuff, like human remains type stuff in
Yeah.
there. And at one point, it was even in there on display. And even though the this last individual, like I said, one of the students went and got the head and brought it back so that it was reunited. So, but how many people? You can not only speculate how many people they actually, how many graves
Beheaded.
they did that
Yeah.
to, and if they did that to everybody, I mean, who's to say it's her ghost and not someone else's?
Right, exactly.
That's I'd say one of the big ones on my bucket list. There's also the Shelburne Museum up in Vermont, up in northern Vermont, has a place called the Dutton House, but I've tried reaching out to them, and they're like not into having people go there to do investigations, so that's probably not one that's going to happen anytime in the near future.
Oh man. Do you have like bucket list locations outside of New England at all? Like anything that's like super popular or whatever?
Well, there's the I know there's the what is it, the Saratoga Homestead in New York. Like we try to keep it mostly in like New York, New England, like in the Northeast.
Yeah.
But like if we can get somewhere, we'll probably do it. But of course, the trick is getting into these places.
Getting there. Yeah, getting there and getting in, yeah.
I do like being former military myself. I was in the Marines for 4 years. I do like
Thank you for your
the
service.
ones that have the like the Hubbard battlefield, for example. It was significant during the American Revolution, and I feel like a lot of people kind of take what happened back then for granted because they weren't there for it. But it's like, I mean, if these people, like that battlefield, there's a couple hundred people that may have died there, and if they didn't, we might be calling our French fries chips or something,
Yeah. It's a good possibility. You're not wrong. What was I gonna ask? I was gonna ask you something else. Do you have like any equipment that you would say is your favorite, like whether it's your REM pod, the spirit box? I think you might have said that you really liked the spirit box earlier.
I like to play with it, but like my thing would, I can't put my faith in one piece of equipment because one investigation, like we've gone to places, put out REM pods, and have not had a single hit on them.
Mm-hmm.
And then like got stuff on spirit box on the spirit box, or we might be getting like K2 hits or EVPs out of place. And also, it depends on the location. But and also that you've got to be open to the fact that there's other things that could be causing your equipment, like REM pods. We learned real quick on our investigations not to bring radios because a radio can actually set off a two-way like walkie-talkie type. Those can actually set off a REM pod. So we so we don't, so we don't bring radios with us, or what's the other one? Man, I just lost my train of thought. I hate that. There's another one that I was going to say that I find kind of iffy if you find something on there, and shoot, I don't remember what I was. We have even recently we've done a few investigations where we've used like that Ghost Tube app. Have you ever heard of that one?
Yep. Yeah.
It's kind of like almost like the Ovilus device.
Yeah, I've used that a couple of times.
It's interesting, and it's worth noting, but at the same time, it's one of those things. the spirit box, that was the one I was trying to think of, with the radio station sweeping through.
Yeah.
Even with the British accent, it's interesting, but there's always that, well, what if it was just some radio station that managed to chirp in at the right time?
Yeah.
I do remember the Crown Point one, though, that ghost tube app. At one point, I was stomping on the ground, and I swear to God, I'm stomping on it because it sounded hollow. All of a sudden, the ghost tube app goes off in my hand, like as I'm holding the phone in my hand, and it says, "I'm below you."
Oh shit.
That was like, okay.
I used the Ghost Tube app in the Conjuring house, and it said I had it sitting on a little tripod, and it said the monster is coming, and we all like, what? What is that supposed to mean? And then they said something. One of the guys was like, supposedly there's a monster in the woods of something. I don't like a spirit, maybe a demon or whatever that's out in the woods, and they call it the monster.
Well, we'll
I
say
was like, okay,
monster in the woods.
yeah. So I
I
don't know.
never heard of that part.
Me neither. I've never ever That was the first and only time I've ever heard it, and that was I can't remember who said it, but I might have to ask them again about it. But I remember it said it twice in a different way. It said it in a different way later on. But yeah, it was like monsters coming. We all just turn our heads like, what the heck? I think it knows to
pretty
mess
neat.
with you sometimes.
Huh? Oh,
Sometimes
yeah. Well,
I think
also,
it like knows to mess with you.
I think if it is, how should I put it? If it is legit, I think
Mhm.
even then, not every response that comes through is
It's something.
like, I think some
right?
of it is just like the environment, and some of it might be more of an intelligent response. But
Right.
I will say, one piece of equipment that I like to try to incorporate is full spectrum. So, like, I started off with like trying to like get a couple of cameras that were modified and pick like stills, and like the first camera I tried to do it myself, and it ended up busting. And then the second one, I bought one that was already altered, and it worked for a bit, and then it stopped working. And then I found out a way to make I got one right here actually. These little cameras that you can buy on like Amazon for like $20 or $30, but it's actually possible to take them apart and remove the filter. And like, for the sake of people that are wondering what I'm talking about when I say full spectrum, so in the earlier 1800s, there was a scientist named Sir William Herschel, and he was doing a experiment with those prisms, like the little like pretty glass ornament, but if you put the light through it, it separates the colors like a rainbow.
Yeah.
So he was doing an experiment with that at one point, where he was taking the temperature of the individual colors, but he also had some thermometers outside of the visible colors, and those were supposed to be like what do you call it, like a control subject. But he started realizing that he was getting temperature fluctuations in those ones as well, and that's where that's when they discovered that there was light that we cannot see. In fact, they say so like if you have this is the light spectrum.
Mhm.
You'll have like infrared over here, UV over here. What we can see is like in here. They say it's a little bit bigger when you're younger, and that's why they say sometimes kids can see stuff that adults can't.
Yeah.
Because they can see a little more on that light spectrum. But when you take out the filter, like a lot of the cameras that we use, they're infrared, so it's like, yeah, you can see this and over here, but you can't see over here. But if you take a full spectrum camera like this, for example, it catches the whole spectrum. So you take all like these filters, put it back together, and all of a sudden, like if I take the IR light out, which I can't see any of it, lights up bright as day on that. But if I take like a black light, and depending on which type of black light you have, some of them some of them will make like a room look purple, but some of them will like you can only see what it's like actively glowing on. And that just depends on how far in the spectrum it is. But the point is like a black light like that also shows up bright as day. So the idea of a full spectrum is that it can see just about everything that we can't. So I think it's a good way to try to catch, like if you want to try to catch an apparition, it gives you more of a chance.
That's cool.
Unfortunately, the only thing, the closest thing I caught was a raccoon once. Yep.
Oh man, I might have to get me one of those cameras then. We're thinking about investigating the S.K. Pierce mansion before we film the movie.
Over in Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes. Yeah. Gardner. So that would be cool. I've been on 3 investigations. And again, like you said, like nothing really to show evidence. It's all like circumstantial or like a feeling, pretty much. Like Conjuring, I was expecting to get scared like crazy going to the Conjuring house in Rhode Island, but it was actually pretty lame compared to the other 2 places that I went, which one of the places was the Huckamuck Swamp in Massachusetts as well. I went out there, and that got really interesting. That actually kind of scared me. But then again, that was REM pod, the SLS camera, spirit box, and then just our own ears hearing stuff. I mean, we picked up EVPs and stuff, but I think it being dark in the woods and then doing what we're doing, it got a little bit creepy. But when I was in Florida, and in Florida was the first time I ever did an investigation, and I was doing the Estes method with the spirit box, listening to it or whatever. And for me, to be able to answer questions out of that, like not being able to hear, and then for them to ask whatever entity that was there to tap me on my shoulder because it was my first time ever investigating and they wanted to make it a good experience, and I felt somebody's hand on my shoulder. Of course I didn't know that they asked, but I was like, oh man, somebody's like squeezing on my shoulder. And then watching the video back and listening to them say touch him on the shoulder, and then me being like 2 minutes later being like, oh, my shoulder, somebody's grabbing it.
Oh, God, no, when
To
you,
me
when
that
you hear something,
that is something.
When you
Yeah.
hear something that you didn't hear when you were there, that is exciting.
That too.
Like there's one. Have you ever heard of the Eunice Williams covered bridge?
Yes.
In Greenfield, Mass.
Yes.
Yeah. So I stopped there once. Like I brought a friend of mine. He had like a action figure or something that his dad gave him before he had passed.
Yeah.
And like the guy was going to be in Worcester signing autographs. So like I was like, oh, you know what? Since this is something, like that, I'll go. So I go, but on the way back, I was like, not too far from Greenfield. So I decided to go there. And I walked back and forth on that bridge a handful of times. My friend wasn't really part of the team, and he found it kind of neat to watch, but he wasn't really like into being on camera or anything. But I walked across that bridge several times, and it was weird because the last time that I walked across the bridge, this goes back to the personal experience stuff, but like I felt fine the first 2 or 3 times. That last time felt like really anxiety, like a really like anxiety type of thing. But I'm on one end of the bridge, and I had a one of those handheld recorders, like audio recorders, all the way on the other side of the bridge, and I heard it. Like I had to listen to it a few times, but it sounded like a help me and that would have been on the side where Eunice Williams was actually executed.
Whoa.
I know. I was like, oh, that one was pretty neat. But that's the
That
thing. It's
is
like
neat.
I wasn't even on the same side of the bridge as the recorder, so I was like, oh. And it was definitely a very feminine voice, and there were no, it was just me and one other guy, and that other guy was like a ways off and hanging out by my car at the time. So
Dang. That's wild. That's interesting. I did want to ask you while I have you here too, is about what of like the Vermont history the Vermont lore of or legend that you find most fascinating.
most fascinating Vermont lore. Well, we do love Champ in this state.
Yeah, I heard.
And I will say, like, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I would say I'm a Champ believer, to be honest. But when you have kids and you see things through their eyes, it's a little different. So,
Absolutely.
like I went back to Crown Point after the investigation one day for like a little father-son camping trip, and we spent a couple of nights there. But like that lighthouse I was talking about, you can actually go up and in it, and it overlooks Lake Champlain. And my son like was looking for Champ, and it's like, whether it's real or not, it means something to you if you live in this state. So
Yeah. That's funny. So like Jeff Foran, the host of Strangeology podcast, grew up in Vermont, lives in Vermont. And he was telling me a whole bunch of like Vermont stories, and he's like, and New York thinks that Champ is theirs, but it's really ours, and stuff like that. So,
well, Canada claims it too.
oh really? No shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, going back to what you're saying about when you have kids, my son, he was like 8 years old, and he was watching Finding Bigfoot, and I was like, man, what are you watching this stuff for? And he's like, I like it, and like that's was really my introduction into Bigfoot. Realistically, was sitting down with my son watching something that he enjoyed that I thought was complete bullshit, but over time, like it just became something fun to do. And now I'm a little bit more of a believer after a few experiences and whatnot. But if it wasn't for my son, who knows? Maybe I wouldn't have even considered ever even going out to try and look for him or her.
I've always been very skeptical on Bigfoot. I feel like a creature that big with that many sightings, that somebody would have found some remains or something by now. But
Yeah.
I'm not too far from Whitehall, New York.
Yes.
And I don't know if you're familiar with Whitehall, New York, but they do like every year they do like a big Bigfoot festival because it's like one of like those Bigfoot meccas.
Yep.
It's funny because Whitehall, New York is the birthplace of the U.S. Navy.
Really, I
But
did
their
not
claim
know
to
that.
fame, is Bigfoot. It's like, okay, what do we want to go with this small town? Birthplace of the Navy? Bigfoot? All right. It's like, really?
That's funny. I really want to go to that conference someday.
I know.
I think
It's
I
like,
might have missed it for this year already. I think
I think they
it's
usually
in the
do it in the
spring.
summer, or is it the
Is it in
spring?
the summer?
I'll try to
I
keep
always
an eye
thought
out. I usually hear about it before it comes around because, like I said, I live in Vermont on the but like I'm like maybe a few towns over from Whitehall, so
Oh wow,
yeah. And like
that's cool.
I grew up in Rutland, which is like where that pizza place that we were talking about. Yeah,
Yep.
I actually grew up right in there. And never knew until I went into the Marines that the Navy was started in Whitehall, New York. And like one day there we are, I'm just like in the Marines, and they're making us do like a death of PowerPoint class, and they start talking about the Marines. There's a Department of the Navy. The Department of the Navy was started in Whitehall, New York, and I'm like, wait, what? Really?
That's interesting. I didn't even realize there must be obviously like a waterway that goes in to Whitehall.
So Lake Champlain touches Whitehall, and
Oh,
it's
okay.
one of the, I think like one of the first like ships that was like, because keep in mind we used the French Navy a lot during the American Revolution.
Yeah, we
Like
did.
we won the Saratoga campaign, and Ben Franklin actually like was able to use that to persuade the French to join us and help us, and that gave us the Navy that we so desperately needed. But like the few ships that we did have, I guess that all started like over there in Whitehall, New York. One of the earlier ones was, our first ones was the like USS Ticonderoga, I think it was called, and they found it and actually lifted it, and like the remains of it is actually on display in Whitehall somewhere. I got to go find it one of these days. I want to look at it, but
Yeah, I want to look at it too. I'm gonna ask you something else, and now I forget. But that always happens at least once every show. Every episode, I always have a question as I'm thinking of it, and then I forget it as I go to right before I go to say it. But that's okay. I'll just ask you this. Out of all the thing, with all the stuff that you have going on, are you finding fulfillment in your life?
I do. But the thing is like I work a lot of overtime, which takes away a lot of free time, but I do that to provide the family with a good life. Family's
Yep,
always got to come first, though. It's one of those things. That's where you really get your fulfillment from. Uh,
absolutely.
like a lot of the stuff that I used to do when I didn't have kids takes a back seat now, and you know what? It's worth it. But
I would agree.
like or disc golf. I fairly recently got really big into disc golf. Have you ever played?
Yeah, I played a few times.
I find it quite addictive. I tried it, found it addictive. Love playing, but it's like I can't just go every weekend and find a tournament to play disc golf in, because there's always a baseball game or like I want to bring the kid camping or something, so my big fulfillment is family, but being able to do something like disc golf or paranormal investigations, that's like my escape from reality, when you need that little me time.
Hmm. That's
I'm not gonna
fantastic.
lie, a day of running around in the dark with your friends is definitely better than being a day of adulting.
I would agree with that 100%. Um, yeah, I dated a girl years ago, and she really loved disc golf, so we would each get a six pack and go disc golfing every once in a while. It was a good time. One time it got dark on us, and we had to walk. We were walking back, and she's like, Let's walk through here. It's a shortcut." I think she might have had a little bit too much to drink. But I didn't try. I wasn't sober, but I wasn't drunk yet, and watched her veer off into the woods, and she's in a dress, by the way, and I'm like, no, we're not. I was like, we're not going in there. She's like, I do this all the time, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, you do it all the time, so I'll follow you. And then we ended up inside a swamp, and like all the way up to our knees, and I'm like, are you kidding me right now?
But she does it all the time.
She does it all the time. I don't think she did.
I can't get my wife to play with me. I've tried to. I keep trying to convince her to try disc golf, and she refuses. She's like, I have no interest in that.
Aw,
It's like, but it's fun.
do it for me, honey.
I know, right? It's like if you just try it once, That's all I'm asking. But no,
You
she
don't
doesn't
have
want to.
Yeah,
Can't force somebody to do something they don't want. So,
absolutely. Absolutely. So, what's your next investigation? Do you have one lined up?
so we actually, me and Jared went back to just the other night. We went back to Hubbardton, and I'm still in the process of reviewing the all the footage and audio from it.
Okay.
But like the weather's getting nice, so we're trying to get out and get a few videos going. There's a few places, like I was trying to get into that chapel that I was talking about, and I was hoping to do that. And then when it didn't seem to happen for that weekend, I wanted to actually go make a little bit of a drive to go to Oriskany, New York. Have you ever heard of that one?
No. Please
So it was
tell.
another part of the Saratoga campaign during the siege of Fort Stanwix,
Okay.
which I'm sure you've heard that one. So Oriskany was a smaller battle that kind of happened off to the side. They had reinforcements coming to help defend against the British. And apparently the British found out about it, and they sent a force that was primarily Native Americans, and they ambushed them. It was, I think, Brigadier General Herkimer, actually. I don't know have you heard that one, that name?
Yes.
There's like a lot of towns and stuff named after this guy. But,
Yeah.
So like him and his guys, they're going through, and they get ambushed, and I mean, they get slaughtered. This was considered not one of the biggest, but one of the bloodiest battles of the American Revolution. But it was also known as the Native Americans had, I think it was like the Land of 1,000 Sorrows or Great Sorrow or something. Because have you ever heard of the Iroquois Confederation?
Yes.
With the five, so it was like five tribes that kind of like all were aligned together. This was the moment that the Iroquois Confederation broke, actually, because the one of the tribes was aligned with the Continental Army, while the a bunch of them were allied with the British. So this was the first time that they actually had members of the tribes fighting against each other. So it was like kind of like the first, like it broke up like the Iroquois Confederation at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So
interesting.
It was, but that's one I'd like to go to one day. But nobody seemed to be up for the trip this time around, so that's why we ended up going back to Hubbardton. It was like, all right, well, let's just go here, do like a back to basics thing. I was hoping last night. I was hoping to like go out and maybe try to get another one because my wife and kids went away for a few days, and it was like, but the weather didn't cooperate, so I couldn't go anywhere the other night. So
it was downpouring. It was downpouring this morning too.
Mm-hmm.
Thankfully, I don't know if the sun's come out yet over there, but it's up right now, and it actually looks pretty nice. So all the bushes and stuff are probably gonna explode tomorrow. I'm gonna have to trim them. But anywho, Evan, thank you so much for being here. It means a lot to me that you chose to spend this time chatting with me. If you don't mind, one more time, in case anybody missed it or whatever, if you don't mind letting everybody know where they can find you and find your videos.
So Green Mountain Ghost Society, we're mostly just on Facebook and YouTube right now. We do have a Gmail, gmghostsociety@gmail.com. So if you have access to a place that you want investigated, let me know. I will say we try to shy away from private residence because I feel like there's too much of a liability there.
Absolutely.
It's like all of a sudden, hey, I had a Picasso hanging up in this house. And it's like, no, you didn't. No, I did. You guys took it. It's like, what? No, I'm not the most trusting of people, but like the only way we would do a private investigation if it was like somebody that like a member of the team knew personally and closely. So, but like I said, for the most part, we're right there on YouTube, and like I said, we are always trying to improve on the show. And like, if you watch, you can see how it has improved over time, but we try to definitely showcase history and tell the story of history and keep history alive through our investigations. So please feel free to check us out on YouTube.
Yes, check them out. I will put the links in the show notes so you guys can find it a little bit easier. But other than that, again, time is our greatest currency, and I appreciate the time you took to come and chat with me. It means a lot. So, but for the listeners, if you don't mind, like, follow, share, subscribe, leave a rating and review. If your podcatcher does not allow you to leave a rating or a review, please consider doing so on the website where the weird ones are podcast.com. That is also where you can get some hot sauce, some merch, some coffee, some supplements, some short stories. You can also watch the episodes there. And if you are interested, you could contribute to my GoFundMe because Kickstarter didn't make it, so I changed it to GoFundMe for the movie. So that's Secrets of Densmore Manor. We're gonna try and film it this fall, hopefully, but we'll see. But yeah, that is all there. So again, I appreciate you guys listening. Evan, thanks for being here again.
Thank you for having me.
That is all, folks. Question everything and stay weird.
Stay weird.
In the quiet of the night, when the world feels far, there's a voice through the static, like a falling star. It calls the misfits, the dreamers, the ones who see the shadows in the corners, the truth we barely believe. From the pine tree woods to the desert skies, they talk of ghosts and aliens with wonder in their eyes, not afraid to ask the questions that others won't dare, 'cause the world gets strange when you stop and stare. Come gather around where the weird ones are, by the fireside glow or a midnight car, where the stories run deep and the secrets fly like owls in the dark or stars in the sky. If you've ever felt lost, like you don't belong, you found your place, you found your song, right here where the weird ones are. They'll talk of cryptids, time slips, and deja vu, of spirits that linger, and what might be true. But more than the monsters, it's the people you'll find who dare to be open with curious minds. It's not about fear, it's the thrill of the ride, to question the world with wonder as guide. So pull up a chair, let your freak flag fly, we're the seekers of truth beneath the sky. Yeah, come gather around where the weird ones are, on the moonlit thoughts and cosmic scars, where the veil feels thin and the questions burn, and we chase the strange at every turn. You're not alone, not in the dark, you're with a tribe. You found the spark right here where the weird ones are. For the ones who wonder, for the ones who know, welcome home.